All right, welcome to the Krug Show on a Monday, November the 6th, 4 o'clock on the West Coast, 7 o'clock on the East Coast. Hello to everybody. We're talking Niners. Niners coming out of the bye week. They were on the practice field today. I was not down there, but the man on the other side of the screen here, Grant Cohn, was. Grant, good to see you. By the way, thanks to our sponsors, Pig and a Pickle, New York Style Italian Sausage, and Marin Auto Glass. I'll mention them again before we get out of here. Grant, good to see you, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you, Larry?
Good. How's life? How's Pops doing? How's things?
Things are good. Pops is good. He had COVID. He no longer has COVID, but he's exhausted. So he, takes a nap in the afternoon and stuff like that. But him and I are gonna be doing a show tomorrow. Don't miss it.
Good. No, I've seriously, that's some of my favorite shows that you do is you and the great Lowell.
Thank you.
You had a chance to talk to Chase Young today. Why don't we start there? Chase Young hit the podium, hit the practice field. He's wearing number 92. I saw the pictures of him running around. I forgot, this guy's a big guy. I mean, this guy's, if Bosa's 6'3", 6'4", this guy's 6'4", 6'5". He looks bigger on the field.
Yeah, he looks a lot bigger on the field. He's very impressive in his pads. You can tell that he was the number 2 pick. People who were top 10, top 15 pick, you can see it. Like Javon Kinlaw. You look at him on the field, you're like, yeah, that guy definitely was a first-round pick. Without even seeing him do anything. Interestingly enough, Javon Kinlaw was not at practice today. He wears 99. That's Chase Young's number. I wonder what's going on with that. No, I don't know. Anyway, Chase Young.
He was not there.
He was not at practice today.
And he was the only guy not there?
Ray McLeod as well was not there. So didn't know why. Didn't get an explanation. We'll find out Wednesday. But as far as Chase Young goes, I mean, we'll see how he does in the game. But in terms of what he said, a couple of things. One, he's extremely eager to be on the same team with Nick Bosa again. I feel like he thinks Nick Bosa brings the best out of him. There's like some word on Chase Young that he's not so professional, or that he sort of will abandon his assignment to go after the pass, and he might not be the best run defender. Sounds like he wants to rise to the occasion and impress Nick Bosa. So that's good. And then the other thing is, like, people are asking, what's the difference between Washington and San Francisco? And like right away, he was like, oh, the culture. I think he played at Ohio State. He expects to win. The Niners expect to win. Washington loses a lot. It's a loser culture. And I think maybe the 49ers will bring the best. I think Chase Young thinks the Niners will bring the best out of him. We'll see.
It sounded like Chase may have gotten there during the bye week and spent time with Bosa and the coaches, and maybe took some of those extra days and actually put in some work trying to learn the 49er defense. Did he talk about that, or did he give his timeline at all?
He did talk about that. He spent time learning the defense during the bye week. He's very diligent. He's got an audition right now. I mean, he's not signed through next year. So this is it. He could be a little rental. He could be a big nothing like Randy Gregory. Sorry, Randy. But like, you got an audition, you didn't do anything with it, and then they went and got Chase Young. That could be Chase Young. Or if he takes over, they could re-sign him, bring him back next year, and have, the D Ford replacement they've been looking for years. So it's a big opportunity for Chase Young. I would hope that he takes it seriously. It sounds like he is.
I don't know if you caught Kawakami's deal with Lynch, but he asked him about, is he a rental? And Lynch, he said, hey, kind of a we'll see. He didn't really answer it. But what's your best guess? Is Chase Young just here is he going to be like Emmanuel Sanders, where he's here, and then at the end of the year they bid on him, but he walks? Or do you think he's going to be kind of more like McCaffrey, where he's going to be here in the future and they just happen to add him while he has 1 year left?
Seems to me that even if he plays really well and earns a big contract, he's probably not going to get it from the 49ers. Like, how many big contracts are they going to give out on the defensive line? They've already given out 3 huge ones. I just don't see it. I think maybe this is probably a 1 year rental, and either he doesn't play well and he leaves, or he plays really well and gets priced out. That's what I would think. I mean, I think maybe they're thinking that they're going to bring out the best in him. Like, he was playing in Washington, they were losing, no one's watching that team. He was kind of like, how serious was he? But now you're in the spotlight. Everyone's watching you. Everyone, when the Niners are on television, people are talking about Chase Young. They just traded for Chase Young. Is he going to be the missing piece the way Christian McCaffrey? All eyes on Chase, which is what he wants. This is a great forum, a great platform for him to make some money. But it's probably going to be elsewhere. My best guess. I just don't see how they could fit in another mega contract if it comes to it.
I'm so eager to see this game because I'm looking at those Jacksonville numbers and I'm like, wow, Lawrence is getting rid of the football super fast.
Yeah.
Wonder who was like that. Oh, Joe Burrow was last week. Are the even with Chase Young, even with Hargrave, even with Bosa, Armstead? I mean, that's a terrific number one line. Are they going to be able to get to Lawrence? And even if they can't, can they hug up and tighten that coverage a little bit? I mean, they're going to have to be able to affect the quarterback without necessarily getting home or bother these teams in some other way other than their front, Grant. Because I mean, if a quarterback wants to get rid of it in 2.5 seconds,
nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, what's the counter?
Well, you said it. So Lawrence gets rid of the ball super quick because that offensive line is terrible in Jacksonville.
Right.
He also statistically, and I got this from Nick Wagner. Shout out Nick Wagner. He works at ESPN. He's got all these stats. He said, and he's great. I love Nick Wagner. And he said that Trevor Lawrence is the best quarterback in the league statistically against zone defense. Just carves it up. So, it's what is Steve Wilks going to do? He's been catching a lot of flack for playing man-to-man coverage and blitzing, right? Richard Sherman is like, what are you doing? This is a rush 4 team. Everyone's saying this is a rush 4 team. Get back to rushing 4 and playing zone. Okay, you do that against Jacksonville, I think you're going to get diced up worse than you got diced up by Cincinnati. Like, I think just looking at this one opponent, man, they have Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk. I think you got to play man-to-man coverage and live with it. They're not the greatest receivers. They're good. And that's even a stretch. Like Christian Kirk, are you really scared of Christian Kirk man-to-man? I mean, maybe if you don't think Isaiah Oliver can cover anyone, but I think they got to be a little bit more aggressive with their coverages. If they're just going to play 9 yards off, then none of these pass rushers are going to get an opportunity to ever get to Trevor Lawrence. The ball's going to come out in 2.5 seconds or less, and he's going to dice up the zone coverage. So Niners got to play press man to win this game, and I don't know if they will. I don't know.
I know that I mean, as you said, it kind of goes against their personality as a defense the last few years to play a lot of man. Okay, in the Kawakami piece, he asked him about Wilks, and Lynch said, "Hey, man, the players believe in Wilks," but he also emphasized, "Man, we have to play better." The thing that bothers me the most about the Wilks thing is just 16 different employers since 1996. That's a lot, man. That's a lot of different employers. And now Kyle said, "Hey, Steve and I are going to have a one-on-one this week, and we're going to talk about, is he in the booth or down on the sideline?" Obviously, you guys, Kyle doesn't talk till Wednesday, so I know you didn't talk to him today, but what do you think? I mean, where's that going? What is the solution for Wilks? Is being on the sideline the answer, or is this about personnel? What do you do?
Great question. It's a great question. And the reason you think bring him down on the sideline is, this defense needs someone like D'Amico was on the sideline. Robert Saleh was on the sideline. They were chest bumping players. There was literally a person on the staff whose job it was to hold Robert Saleh back. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Oh, he was called the holdback coach.
The holdback guy. So okay, that's what this defense thrived off. The whole team thrived off it. You want that. All right, man. You put Steve Wilks on the sideline. That's not him. It's not him. He's not Robert Saleh. He's not D'Amico Ryans. So basically what you're asking him to do is, hey, Steve, come to the 49ers and run a scheme you've never run. And then go on the sideline and be a person you're not. Like, how inauthentic are you asking this man to be? It's not fair to Steve. Leave him alone. You should have vetted him better. Maybe he's not the personality. Maybe he's not the coach you need. But you can't change now. You're halfway in the season. What are you going to do? You could fire him and elevate Daniel Bullocks. That's the only other thing you could do. Daniel Bullocks is supposed to be like the next guy in the Niners defensive coaching program. But clearly they don't think he's ready. Otherwise, they would have gave him the job. So it seems like you got to roll with it, man. Leave him in the booth, leave him alone, and play better.
Yeah, I say leave him in the booth too. Leave him in the booth. If you're going to hold him accountable, then let him at least have a vantage point that he's comfortable with. And if he wants to be in the booth, then let him be in the booth, because you are going to hold him accountable for the results. So don't force him to, it's like a doctor who's trying to assess a patient. You're now going to change his vantage point and make him uncomfortable. Is that going to make it better? I don't think so.
Real quick, with Kyle, everyone always says he's so authentic, right? He's so authentic. He keeps it real. He's just himself. Well, they're not letting Wilks be authentic. Well, hey, whatever scheme you think, whatever instincts you've ever had in terms of defensive football, forget him and just try to be D'Amico Ryans in the meetings, in your play sheet, on the sideline. Just be D'Amico. That's totally unfair.
No,
that better not be the adjustment the Niners made at the bye week.
Well, and two things bother me. One is the run D. We'll get to that in a second. But the other is, I asked Chris Kasarik in July about, you're going to play your ones more, and he's like, no. If I play Bosa 70 snaps a game, man, he ain't going to be there in the playoffs. Well,
that's true.
Bosa's played over 60 snaps the last 3 weeks. Last week against the Bengals, he played 68 snaps. The Niners only have 5 sacks in their last 3 games combined, and they only, through 8 games, the non-Bosa DNs have only 5.5. So it's like almost like what Chris claimed he didn't want to do in July, he is doing. And like Lynch told Kawakami that Drake, who has only a 7% pressure rate and not a single pressure since week 4, is nicked up, but that he has to earn his snaps. It really seems like their backup D-line they've lost their quality depth. And, I don't know if Chase Young and Gregory are going to help. We're going to find out. But it's like they like their ones, but they don't love their backups.
Well, let's go through their backup D-line. You got Randy Gregory, who hasn't done much. You got Javon Kinlaw, who hasn't done much. Kevin Givens, who's a little small, hasn't done much. Yeah. And Cleveland Farrell. Okay. I mean, it's not
slow
great.
Side. A little on the slow side.
It's not great. It's not a great. I mean, you really wouldn't want that entire line out there. And then you got Drake Jackson. Is Drake Jackson going to be inactive the rest of the season? I think he will be. Wow.
Well, I'd like to know what his injury is, because Lynch made it sound like he's banged up. I mean, he looked great against the Steelers in week 1, but no pressure since week 4, and it's week 9. That's not good.
They put all their eggs in his basket. They really sold themselves on him being something like, oh, he worked out. He put on weight. Like, okay, is he good though? And they never really got an answer with that. And in training camp, you were there. People would make a big deal about him when he broke up a pass or was in coverage downfield. And it's like, that's nice, man. But what about rushing the quarterback? And I think he made Colton McKivitz look way better than Colton McKivitz is. They had battles in training camp. And I think that probably tells you everything you need to know about Drake. Sorry.
Where are you with Bosa? Because Lynch was like, hey, man, if you don't appreciate what Nick's doing, you're not watching the film. And I do watch the All-22 every week. And I will say this, I see him draw he will force opposing offensive linemen almost every single week to hold him at least once or twice and draw penalties. Mm-hmm. So that's good, but he's not getting home, but the coverage is soft. So it's like how much is him? Mm-hmm. If I say Nick Bosa, do you say he's having a great year, good year, mediocre year, disappointing year? Where are you with Bosa?
I think it's a disappointing year by his standards, considering what he's been able to do in the NFL and the amount of money the 49ers are committed to giving him. I think it's definitely disappointing by his standards. And it's like, you could say that it's because of the soft coverage and it's Steve Wilkes' fault, but then he had no sacks in the playoffs last year. Like, this was going back to last year. Right. And Chris Kasarik said that thing about, trying to keep him fresh. I don't know, man. I mean, he's played a lot of football. It seems like he just has hit a wall or something. And it goes back to last season. So I don't want to just blame it all on Steve Wilkes. He's still a good player. Obviously, he's the best player in the Niners D-line, one of the best players on the team. But a defensive lineman getting $35 million a year, who for about 2 seasons was registering a sack a game, and now it's been like 13 games. He's only had 4 sacks in the last 13. I don't know. And then you look at Joey with the Chargers. It's like, man, he's not the player he used to be. Is that where Nick's going? I feel like Joey Bosa was dominant, and all of a sudden he wasn't. He became expensive and good, but not nearly worth what they're paying him. And I wonder, is that where Nick's going? Because every week I think we expect, okay, this is the week he's got a backup offensive tackle. He can really tee off, and it doesn't really happen. So I don't know. You tell me.
To me, he looks a little bit more yoked up, a little stiffer. I still see him getting some good things done, but it's just like it seems like the coverage, if he's almost getting there, you got to tighten your coverage a little bit. And if you tighten your coverage a little bit, I mean, I'd like to see the Niners, at least in one game, maybe this week, have real tight coverage, but get burned over the top. Mm-hmm. Because right now, they're not getting burned over the top, but they're playing such soft coverage that they're team quarterbacks are getting into rhythms against them, and Cousins and Burrow the last 2 weeks have completed like 82% of their passes against this defense.
Do you remember what Wilkes said first thing when he came into the team? He said, they're like, you're taking over the number one defense in the league. How could you possibly make it better? What do you want to do to put your imprint on this defense? And he was real clear. Like, I want to give up fewer explosive plays. Because if you remember last year, one of the things this defense kind of struggled with was long passes. Ambry Thomas, Diamador Lenore getting mossed at the catch point. They gave up a lot of long passes for a number one defense. And I think Wilkes felt, got to stop that. So all of a sudden, you're getting this too high off zone coverage that's way more conservative than what D'Amico was doing last year. And I think I feel like Steve Wilkes has really overcompensated. It's okay. So you haven't given up that many long passes this year, but you gave up 19 completions in a row.
Right.
In a half. Come on. You make an adjustment quick, and you can't let that happen. You can't win that way.
Oh, I know.
Take something away.
Seriously, challenge these guys at the line of scrimmage a little bit more. And I guess the game plan, or at least the ideology, is that teams, if you've got a good 4-man rush, if you play a loose coverage, and you keep everything in front of you, that over the course, if you make them pin them deep inside their own 20, make them drive, 85 yards against your defense, that somewhere along the line they'll make a mistake. But guess what's happened the last couple of weeks? Since he rolls in, they make no mistakes. They have no penalties. Minnesota makes no mistakes. What do you think
Jacksonville's going to do? Exactly. What do you think's going to happen when you face these quarterbacks? They're good.
They're going to carve you, and then all of a sudden
Purdy would carve you.
And then you look tired at the end of games, and you can't stop the run, and you start to give away the run, and then all of a sudden the whole thing falls apart. Let me ask you this. I talked to you
real quick.
Yeah.
Remember why the Niners signed D'Amico, signed Trevarius Ward. Okay. That was D'Amico's second year as a DC. And his whole thing, he talked about it. I want the quarterback to have to take a hitch. If we can make him hitch one time, meaning he drops back,
right,
it's not there, and he has to hitch one more time and wait, we're going to sack him. We want that extra beat because we want to hit the quarterback, not just pressure the quarterback. So that's why you brought in a press corner in Trevarius Ward, a press corner. Steve Wilkes comes in and looks at Trevarius Ward and said, "No, I'm going to play you 9 yards off the ball." Why? That's not how he got paid.
He doesn't look comfortable in that. And people think, oh, well, it's easier. It's actually very difficult for these corners to understand exactly the timing to when to play off coverage. It's
You're like asking to be Richard Sherman. Like, okay, he's not Richard Sherman. He's Trevarius Ward.
It's difficult, and it's not necessarily a smooth transition. All right. Croc, I had him on earlier today. We did a little co-stream. Croc thinks that the Niners are scapegoating Wilkes.
I can see
Where are you on that front?
I agree with him.
Possible?
I agree with him. He's part of the problem for sure. But first of all, they never should have hired him. And second of all, he's not the whole problem. It's not just the defense. This offense has scored 17 points 3 games in a row.
Right.
And I mean, they just lost 2 guys. They still had a bunch of talent, not on their offensive line, but that's them. That's how they build their team. So I would agree with Croc that they are scapegoating Steve Wilkes. I mean, you put him in a no-win situation. You brought him in here and asked him to run someone else's scheme. Good luck. That was a bad idea. And now when the whole, it's to me, it's a whole team meltdown the last 3 games. It was special teams, it was offense, it was defense. And to act like it's all on Wilkes and maybe the solution is moving his location during games is so off the point. So I got to agree with him.
It makes you wonder, because there's been very little discussion about the offense and a lot of discussion about the defense. The Niners opened the practice window today for 3 guys. Now, I thought it was interesting because Shanahan the other day said, hey, I watched the film, not after the game, but the next day. He's like, I watched the film, and our team looks tired and slow.
Yeah.
Well, they were heading into their bye week, so they'll be a little less tired. But slow is slow. And I asked Croc, I said, how do they get faster? He's like, in the draft. And I'm just thinking, how do they get faster, like, right away? And they did open the practice.
Brown?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, they opened the practice window today for Robert Peel, who's very fast off the edge.
There you go.
Womack, who's on the IR, he's fast. Luter, who's got good speed and plays bump and run, plays man-to-man up on the line of scrimmage. And then Jair Brown, I would rather see than maybe one of the other 2 safeties. I think he can do it all. I think he can play the deep middle for Gibson. I think he can play up on the line if you want to move Hufanga around. How do they inject more speed? Can they inject more speed on the fly here, or do you agree with Croc that it's a draft free agency thing? It's an off-season deal.
I mean, they lost Jimmy Ward. He was fast.
Right.
They lost Azeez Al-Shaair. He was fast. Like, their safeties aren't fast. Let's be real honest about Talanoa Hufanga. I like Talanoa. Everyone likes Talanoa Hufanga.
Great guy.
He's not good in coverage. His thing is tackling. And he's not making a ton of tackles this year. He's fallen off tackles. I mean, he's not making an impact. In fact, if he's not like a lights out tackler, you could argue like, is he making a negative impact on your defense? Because he's not providing speed. I mean, I wonder, did they draft Jair Brown to replace Tashawn Gibson or to replace Talanoa Hufanga? Because if Talanoa Hufanga is going to make all pro money, the Niners are not going to give him a second contract. They're not going to spend top of the market money on a safety, just like they won't spend top of the market money on a guard. So I wonder, I mean, he was all pro last year. I don't know that he necessarily deserved it. No disrespect, but man, he had some rough games, some rough stretches. He had a lot of splash plays on a good defense. And I think he got the all pro 9, but he's not playing like an all pro or a pro bowler this year. He's playing like a guy who might not be as good as Jair Brown. I don't know. He's not.
I agree with everything you just said.
Thank you.
I agree with everything you just said. PMG says Huff needs knee surgery. I don't know.
Hey,
maybe he does.
I don't know about
but look at Jair Brown. Jair Brown's a box safety that will step in front of you and hit you. Hufanga's greatest thing is that the reason he was a day 3 pick is that he's not great in coverage, but he had this uncanny ability to attack the mesh point in the run game, and he was like a weapon. But if he's falling off blocks regularly, so if he's not a coverage guy and he's falling off blocks regularly, I know he's got the Palomalu hair and he's a great guy, but what are you getting done? I mean, they're not good against the run, partially because he's not good against the run right now.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, he's your strong safety. He's not an asset against the run or the pass right now. That's what it is. He's not an asset against the run or the pass right now, and neither is Gibson. Neither of the safeties are.
The safeties
slow
have regressed.
They really have.
I mean, people hated Tart.
Maybe they don't fit the scheme as much. Maybe they were really locked into whatever D'Amico was doing, because it was the second year in D'Amico's scheme where Talanoa really took off. Maybe there's a marriage there that I don't get. But right now, neither of these guys are doing anything. If you want to inject some life, maybe it's at safety.
Yeah. No, it's a weird deal, right? Because Gibson's like the veteran back there who gets them lined up. He had a nice hit that got called a penalty. It was a bogus penalty. We all know that. But other than that, Gibson doesn't starch anybody in the run game. He seems like his coverage is just okay. What he's best at is if you can put a big rush up front and the ball gets tipped or the ball floats down the field, he will catch that ball.
Sorry, Tart.
Exactly. He won't do what Tart did.
Sorry.
He won't drop an easy pick. He will.
Jaquaski Tart basically became Kyle Williams on the Niners. If you talk about Jaquaski Tart, any Niner fan would be like, "Oh my God, NFC Championship game." He was on the team for like 7 years.
I know. I feel bad, but you know what? They just saw that the other day, and God, it was a gimme. Oh my God, it was a gimme.
It was a Kyle Williams moment. Anyway, sorry. Enough.
It was the ultimate gimme.
Enough Tart.
But, I mean, they replaced Tart.
He's a good guy.
Ward. I mean, think about this too. And this is kind of my big complaint with the Niners on D.
Mm-hmm.
The coverage has been soft. The pass rush is not getting home.
Yep.
But to me, the big problem is that this team has never stopped the run all freaking year. They didn't stop the run in the preseason. They really, if you look closely at the beginning of the year, they didn't stop the run in week 1. The Pittsburgh just stopped running it. They didn't stop the run against the Rams. The Giants did not try to run. They had no Saquon Barkley. James Conner ran for 5 yards a carry, but he only had 11 carries because the Niners were up 21-10 at half.
Right.
Dallas was down 21-7 at half, so Pollard only had 8 carries. The first team that actually committed to running the ball was Cleveland in week 6. and they ran for almost 5 yards a carry on 34 runs, and they did it with their backup backs. So that's week 6, the first loss. Then week 7, we talked about Cousins endlessly, and rightfully so, but that was the 29th rated rush offense in football, and Alexander Madison, who had been doing nothing. I mean, it ran for 2 yards a carry the week before, ran for 4.9 in that game. And then last week, we can talk about Burrow all we want, but the Bengals had the worst rushing offense in the NFL coming in. They ran for 5 yards a carry in the game. Mixon ran for 5.4 a carry. So now I'm looking at this week and I'm going, yeah, Travis Etienne is under 4 yards a pop, and Rachaad White the week after is under 4 yards a pop, and Kenneth Walker doesn't look all that great. But guess what? These teams may gash the Niners in the run game if they can't stop the run the way they haven't been able to stop the run seemingly all year. So I think that run D is a major – and if you look at the stats lie. The stats say that the Niners are like 5th in the league against the run. They're not 5th in the league against the run. They're not. If anything, they're a mid-pack or lower run D. I don't care what the stats say. Teams just haven't tried them. And if they do stick to the run,
they rank 18th in yards per carry allowed. So it's not a good run defense.
That's way more that's a greater indicator than their 5th of total rushing yards per game.
Okay, so the run defense, it is a problem. And I don't see how the Niners didn't see this coming. They made a trade. They signed Javon Hargrave, but it was a trade. You couldn't keep they had to let 4 or 5 guys go.
Right. Good run defenders. Ebukam.
Yeah. Samson Ebukam. Charles Omeni, who's more of a pass rusher, but Samson Ebukam, Azeez Al-Shaair, Jimmy Ward. Those 3. So one more. A guy that no one ever talks about. No. You won't even mention him. No one talks about this guy's not in the team anymore. Hassan Ridgeway. Thank you. Yeah. Hassan Ridgeway. He was quietly a good run defender. So you lose Ridgeway, you lose Ebukam, you lose Al-Shaair and Jimmy Ward. 4 legit good run defenders. 3 of them on the field at all times. Al-Shaair and Jimmy would switch split off. You let them all go and bring in Javon Hargrave, who's not a run defender. And now you're like scrambling, like Isaiah Oliver, not a run defender. Right. Oren Burks, special teamer. Still looking to replace Ebukam on the edge. Can't set that edge. Maybe Chase Young will, although Washington got rid of him partially because he doesn't do stuff like that or chooses not to for them.
And then Greenlaw and Warner were so badass in September that it kind of camouflaged how bad the rest of the D is against the run.
Yeah, and now Greenlaw's banged up, clearly. And frankly, Warner is overrated. He's great in coverage, but as a linebacker against the run, he's a big safety. He doesn't hit as hard as Greenlaw. He doesn't run as fast as Greenlaw. He's not as violent as Greenlaw. Like Greenlaw's the linebacker on this team. He's everything they wanted Reuben Foster to be. Greenlaw. Not right now because he's injured.
Right. But he's an awesome player. He's an awesome player who at the beginning of the year was just spectacular.
Yeah, Fred Warner is much more of like a finesse linebacker, and he's great at what he does. Maybe he's a modern linebacker, but once you take Greenlaw and Al-Shaair off the field, and it's him and Flanagan Fowles and Oren Burks, all of a sudden you're like, man, those linebackers really aren't that fearsome.
Right?
Not really scared of them.
When they lost Al-Shaair, they lost some swagger.
Yes, they did. He's a hell of a player.
Looking back on it, I know the argument was, hey, man, he's only on the field 25% of the snaps, and you only play 3. So what? He was a starting caliber guy. You developed him. I would have paid him. Now he's making
so good against the run.
Tackles a game for Tennessee.
Ebukam was so good against the run. Yeah. I mean, not really a pass rusher, but you couldn't run to his side at all. He was so good. And you replaced him with Cleveland Farrell, who's not good. I'm sorry. He's decent. He's not good. You thought Drake Jackson was going to be that guy.
Right. No. None of these guys are. And then if you want to go back a couple years, Tart was damn good against the run. DJ Jones was a force against the run. Emmanuel Mosley was a very good run defender off the edge as a corner. They lost a bunch of guys who were dogs who would just go out there and K1, another guy, undersized guy, but would detonate people.
And if you think about it, remember, Robert Saleh took over this defense in 2017. The previous year, Jim O'Neill, defensive coordinator, had the worst run defense in franchise history. Saleh comes in, first thing he does is fix the run defense in the first year. That was the first thing that he changed about this team and this culture, the run defense. And that's the first thing that Steve Wilks gave up.
Very frustrating. And that to me, that's my main concern. Hey, and by the way, the Niners, I'll just say it loudly for people who may think otherwise. Niners probably aren't beating Lamar and the Ravens. They're the number one rush D, and they just discovered this kid Keaton Mitchell, and
Offense.
they're going to run the ball all day on Christmas. So if you can't stop the run and you get to that Christmas game against the Ravens, good luck.
That's why I just don't get the Chase Young. I mean, it's fine to trade for Chase Young. You didn't give up that much for him, but you really think he's going to make you he's going to fix all your problems?
Right.
You can't rush the quarterback because you can't stop the run or cover anyone. You can't stop the quick passing game or the run game. So you don't get to rush the quarterback. You don't get to. It's not 3rd and 9.
Right.
No, that's on you. So add as many pass rushers as you freaking want, but I don't think that's going to really change much.
And you can sit here and say, man, Grant, Larry, you guys are being hyper negative. No, we're not. I watched that Bengals game on the binoculars. I've watched that game 5 times. I've watched the condensed version. I've watched the all 22 3 times. The 49ers had no resistance in that game. We can talk about the offense, and the offense has got problems. We'll get to them next. But the defense there was 3 things that the Bengals could do at will. Run it, throw it short because the coverage was so freaking soft, and the screen game. And they never even went to the screen game because they didn't need it. Yeah. If the Niners have not defended the screen well, but they didn't even need to throw screen passes in that game because they were doing everything else. They're like, hey, we'll just run it and throw short, and we'll let Burrow run a little bit. If the Niners had stopped their run game, it's shut down their short passing game and shut down Burrow's scrambling on 3rd down, they still would have lost that game because they would have gone to the screen game and they would have ruined the Niners defense on those screens all afternoon. They had more in their plan than they even used.
Any defense that gives up 19 completions in a row needs to change a lot. Yeah. Whatever they're doing, whatever they're trying to do, that was your game plan. That happened in the first half. You studied the Bengals. You put that game plan together, said, we got to play zone, man. We got to be careful here. And you had to go back at halftime and be like, you know what? We were 100% wrong with 2-man coverage. I don't know. If I were a player on the team, I'd be lacking confidence in the coaching staff as well. How did we do this? It's our fault, but it's also your fault. 19 completions and we don't adjust. What are we doing, Steve? This didn't happen to us last year. We were good last year. We were confident last year. Last year, every time we played a team, they lost the next week. No one's afraid of us. Why?
Totally. I mean, it's this defense used to have a swagger. This defense used to have an after effect. Last year, every team that played them was licking their wounds the next week. This week,
but can we come back to Bosa? Not so much. Can we come back to Bosa now? You paying him $35 million a year. He's supposed to be that leader on your defense, and yeah, he's still playing well according to Pro Football Focus. But maybe Wilkes should step up. But maybe the fact that Bosa went from being the Incredible Hulk to a very good football player is another issue with the Niners defense.
Why did a guy who had 18 sacks last year suddenly can't get to the quarterback?
And why did it start happening last year? We'll never really know what's going on with Nick Bosa, but something's going on with Nick Bosa. And I bet you the Niners talk about it privately. They just do it in very hushed tones and it's very quiet, private rooms where no one can hear.
Right. This is not a super, but Michael O'Brien says, I will never forget both of you and Lowell coming on my Zoom meeting with my class when I used to teach. You guys will always be my favorites. Thank you, Michael. Good to hear from you, brother. And hopefully your things are going well at school. Let's hit some supers, though. Speaker Box XO. What's your impression on Chase? I don't do impressions. No, he's a big boy for sure, and I hope ends up being who we want him to be as a Niner fan. I like what I've seen from Chase as far as I went back and looked at the all 22 of their last 3 or 4 games, and I like what I see. I don't see a guy who's dragging that knee. He doesn't look like he's majorly regressed. In some ways, I was rooting more for Montez Sweat, Grant, but in some ways, he actually gets more done than Montez Sweat, at least in the 4 or 5 games that I looked at. So I like him. He's a bigger guy. I think he can get the edge, and I think he can set the edge in the run game and get the edge as a rusher, and he'll do a nice job of setting you up for the second half by bull rushing you in the first half. I think Chase Young's going to be quite a bit better than Randy Gregory. Nothing against Gregory, but Gregory's helps, but I think Chase Young's going to help more.
Gregory can't set the edge, so at least he'll be better at that. But he has issues with consistency. He has issues with maturity, at least in terms of following his assignments. He has issues with Chase. He has issues with health and durability. So it could work out. It might not. The Niners have had some bad luck betting on defensive linemen with questionable knee histories. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see. It's a relatively low risk move for them. I'm sure. Like Montez Sweat would have cost them more. Montez Sweat's more consistent, more reliable, better. Maybe Chase Young is more talented, but Washington waited 4 years for that talent to materialize, and they're like, you know what? We're just going to give him up for a comp. Thanks. Goodbye, Chase.
I would say don't expect more than you saw in Washington. He was on a great line in Washington. It'll help that he's on a great line here, but he was on a great line there too. Neil says the way CJ played yesterday could have been Trey. Well, we all wanted Trey to play that way. I don't know.
CJ was playing like that in college.
CJ was amazing on a couple of those throws in the second half. I mean, some of those windows.
CJ's a little bit like Mahomes in the sense that he got written off by a lot of people because of the school he went to. But there's always going to be an exception to that rule. Mahomes is the only good quarterback to ever come from Texas Tech, and now it looks like CJ Stroud might be the only good quarterback to come from Ohio State. But he did this in college.
He did, and that with that cognitive test that he didn't do well on, I guess that you can throw that one out the door. Throw that one.
D'Amico didn't care. Shout out to D'Amico Ryans for getting that right.
Well, not only that,
the Panthers did not.
D'Amico Ryans is the coach of the year, probably, right? And now they get
him or Saleh or McDaniel, not McDaniel, but him or Saleh. I'm interested to see what Saleh does tonight. Really interested to see what he does tonight.
I took the Jets tonight. I took the Jets.
I mean, what he's doing with Zach Wilson. Wow.
Yeah. No, I like Robert Saleh. Cheddar Bob 530 with a exclamation point. We need to get Uncle Sherm out of the booth and on the sideline as our defensive coordinator. What do y'all think about them rumors? He's made too much money. I mean, coaches work 120 hours.
A bunch of money. Yeah, I mean, a D coordinator could make a couple $1 million a year, but like he's just not. He doesn't get to just be a D coordinator in the NFL. He would have to go through the proper channels like D'Amico Ryans did, quality control, position coach. And then finally, I think what I'd like to see Richard Sherman is just go straight to Stanford and be the head coach of Stanford. I want to see that. Sherman, well, it's not that there's no Pac-12 anymore, but,
he's smart enough to do whatever he wants to do. The question is, does he want these hours?
No, it's a lot of hours. It's way easier to be media.
Yeah, way, way easier.
Yeah.
Jack's WWE, thank you. The coach is in the house. He says, since he whooped our ass, plain and simple, and B Moore is all but a loss. They better show and prove against Jacksonville. It could get ugly quick.
There's also Philly in there. There's a couple games against Seattle. I don't know about how good Seattle is, but yeah, there's a few more losses on the schedule if they're not.
I agree with him wholeheartedly about Baltimore, though. If you're watching Baltimore might be the best team in the game right now. Baltimore ran yesterday for 7 yards a carry and gave up 1 point something.
Hard to lose when you do that.
Yeah, and you got the MVP of the league on your team. Luis is sorry if this question has been asked, but have any of you asked Kyle why Jordan Mason isn't featured more in the offense? I'm getting there. I've asked him why CMC is on a 400 touch pace. I've hinted towards Mason, but it's time to be a little bit more direct about it.
Yeah, I think
What does Jordan Mason need to do to get on the field?
How if averaging 5.6 yards per carry isn't enough, you tell me, Coach. I'm interested.
And if you tell me if you can't pass block, okay, I get it. How about just run him then? How about just have him on the field and I don't know, use him as a running back?
Yeah, like it just seems to me that he's so different from Christian McCaffrey. And you can't run the same routes. You can't run the same runs with those two. And when Mason comes in, you actually have to run a different offense. Okay, like build that offense. There's a lot of things you could do with Jordan Mason. He's very good at what he does. If Christian McCaffrey were hurt, you would do that. But it just seems like kind of laziness. Like, I don't need to do that. I'm just going to give the ball to Christian McCaffrey as much as possible and win the game. Sorry, Jordan. Like, nah, don't do that.
I mean, first of all, Mitchell, to me, I don't care what your August plan was. He's a rhythm back. You're never going to give him enough run to get into any kind of a rhythm. So put him aside for a second. Mason, to me, you're not opening holes. So you need a back that can push the pile a little bit. At least he can. And yet he had that very impressive run against Dallas where I think he was going to run through the B gap, saw the opening in the C gap, popped it outside, a little sidestep, full speed cut, was gone. Was absolutely
really
gone. I don't know, Grant, that he's touched the ball since that carry.
How many teams would have a guy averaging 5.6 yards per carry and not give him the ball? How many teams would do that? That is such a Kyle Shanahan thing to do where he it's so counter intuitive that when Kyle does it, people are like, well, he must have a reason. I mean, it's so unexplainable that Kyle must have a good reason for why he's doing this. And I'm thinking like, man, this is stupid. Kyle, get your running back on the field. He's good. Why are you playing Elijah Mitchell? He doesn't have it right now. It's an easy decision.
It's easy to see. It's really easy to see that he doesn't have it. All right. How will Shanahan jumpstart the offense? He talked about my team's old or my team's beat up and tired. Now they're a little less beat up after the bye. He said they're slow and tired. Well, they're less tired now, but how do they get more speed? I would play Mason at running back and flex out CMC and take some of the pounding off of him and still utilize him out in space. But I mean, how does Shanahan jumpstart the offense? And we get this non-super, but it's just a good question. Gary Lamb, Main Event Mania, says, did you guys ask Kyle about some up-tempo offense? The very little use of tempo.
Yeah, right. No, they don't do that. They're the slowest offense in the league. They need to do 18 shifts and motions before they run any play. No, here's what they're going to do. Who's fresh on this offense right now, Larry?
Mason.
At wide receiver.
Ayuk probably.
Debo.
I mean, Debo. Yeah, Debo's hasn't played. I mean, Danny Gray's never touched anything. I wouldn't mind seeing Danny Gray.
Debo should be fresh. Debo makes the most money on this offense. He makes like double. He makes $20
million a year. 20.
Yeah, he needs to step up. He needs to step up and play and like carry the team down the stretch the way he did 2 years ago. He's not that old. He's fresh. He hurt his shoulder. He should be healthy. It's got to be Debo. And I feel like Kyle Shanahan is so creative with Debo. He can do so much. He can make the quarterback's life so easy. Got to be Debo, man. Otherwise, we've seen this offense without Debo. It's not going to be Trent Williams. Trent Williams is interesting. All-time great offensive tackle. But what makes him great is something very specific. It's not his size. It's not his strength. It's his quickness. It's his agility. So once he has an ankle injury, how effective is he? Because everything it's all about getting him in space as a run blocker, out in space on the left side. How good is he going to be at that with a 75% ankle? This is not his game. And once that's off the table for him, he's not a bad player. He's a very good player, but he's not Hall of Fame Trent Williams. Like, you've really taken away his best attribute at that point. So I want to see, where is Trent Williams coming back? Is he 100%? Is he 80%? Because 80% Trent Williams isn't necessarily that great, especially if it's an ankle injury, which it is.
Did he practice today?
He never practices on. No, I didn't see him out there. I don't know. I didn't see him out there.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Jalen Moore, I don't think was bad, but they got to get Trent back out there. They got to get Trent back out there. They got to get Debo back out there.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt. They got to have both those guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Dan Graziano says that he believes that the Niners are going to look to trade Brandon Ayuk this offseason. He's making $2.3 million on the final year of his rookie deal. He's on pace for career highs in receptions, receiving yards, first downs. He'll make $14.1 million this year, 16th highest, or next year, I should say, and be the 16th highest paid wide receiver in the sport if they fail to work out a long-term deal because they exercise the fifth-year option. Mm-hmm. He's going to make, Debo's making $20.9 million next year. Spot Track did a thing today where they project Ayuk's extension to be 4 years and $80 million. So are the Niners, do they have the budget for two $20 million receivers? Are they going to pay Ayuk or are they going to trade Ayuk? He's got 2 touchdowns this year.
I saw that clip. Do they have the budget for it? Yeah, I think they do. Would it be smart to sign Brandon Ayuk to a 4-year, $80 million contract? I've loved Brandon Ayuk since they drafted him. I'm a big Brandon Ayuk fan.
He's the only receiver they have that gets separation. Everybody else is glued to the corners.
He is a very good route runner, but I don't think he's an elite wide receiver. If he were an elite wide receiver, he wouldn't be dropping some of these 50-50 balls that come his way. Like, he is not good at 50-50 balls for a guy with that wingspan. He's just not. He gets open and he makes catches, but like when there's a guy in his hip pocket, I don't trust him to come down with the ball. I haven't really seen him take over games. I wouldn't pay him $20 million a year.
Will they?
Listen to what Dan Graziano's. He didn't hear this from nothing. He didn't hear this from nothing. I think they saw Brandon Ayuk without Debo the last few weeks, kind of hoping that Brandon Ayuk would sort of carry the offense. Didn't. And now they're thinking, you know what? We're not going to get rid of Debo. We're already paying him, and we can't get that contract off our books. Like, do we really want to double down and spend all this money at wide receiver, or trade Ayuk probably for a first-round pick and draft another wide receiver? Teams have had success doing that. You can get good wide receivers every year. Right? That's what the Vikings did. They had Stephon Diggs, who's a lot like Brandon Ayuk. They traded him to Buffalo for a first-round pick, drafted Justin Jefferson. They're not regretting that move. I mean, you could do it, and you can save a lot of money. And you get better at the position, too.
I mean, they've already paid Debo, so they've already made that decision. But let's just say they were both set to be free agents, and you had to pay $20 million to one of them. And, with the wide receiver money exploding, Ayuk. You're probably going to have to pay Ayuk even more than 20. You'd pay Ayuk over Debo?
He's younger. He's more durable. I'd pay Ayuk. I mean, Debo has higher highs, and he can take over games. You could do more with him, but so much of his value is playing running back, and he gets hurt, and he really hasn't been that dominant since he got paid. So I have to go Ayuk, but I feel like they're both number 2 receivers, if we're being honest. Good number 2s.
I know. I get the feeling too. I get the feeling that they're both really good 2s. I would rather pay Ayuk because he gets separation, and I think Debo's not going to age well. But they've already made their bed. They've already decided on Debo, and that decision has been made. All right, let's finish up.
Also look for Hufanga. I know Dan Graziano didn't report it, but there is no guarantee that they re-sign. Hufanga could be very expensive too. I don't know what he's going to be.
Obvious
an all-pro.
Yeah, I mean, and then what about the future of Armstead? What's the future of Trent? What's the future
his extension? I'm just talking about guys that haven't. Yeah, I'm talking about guys who haven't gotten their extensions yet, and I'm not sure Ayuk or Hufanga have it in the bag with the Niners. They might have to go elsewhere for that because the Niners have given out so many contracts. And if you don't play D-line and you're on the Niners, you might not get paid. I'm sorry, it's the only position that matters on the Niners apparently, and running back.
Is there another card for Shanahan to play offensively that we haven't discussed? They don't do a lot with tempo. They haven't used Debo very much. They seem like they're just using CMC to death. Is there another is there an adjustment coming from this offense that I'm not envisioning? I haven't mentioned.
Yeah, oh man. It's too bad they didn't re-sign Daniel Brunskill. They could use Daniel Brunskill right now. I don't know why they thought Spencer Burford was good, but he's not. They've given him 2 years to show something. He's not a good starter. They could really use Daniel Brunskill right this year. Yeah, I don't get it, man. They got to shake up that right side of the offensive line. Having Burford and McKivitz playing together side by side is just all bad. It's not good, and it's gonna burn them throughout the season. They got to shake that up, man. Put Jalen Moore at right tackle or guard or something, because Spencer Burford ain't it, man. Neither is Colt McKivitz. I'm sorry. Something's got to happen on that right side.
It's a weird line because if you look at them individually, you're like, all right, well, he come out, okay, all right. But then you look at them collectively in the last couple of weeks, you're like, well, wait a second. They don't open any run lanes. There's more and more pressure on Purdy every week. Trent's Trent, but Banks has had a decent year at left guard. But Brendel getting waltzed into the backfield by DJ Reader was like, oh, my God, I couldn't believe that. Burford, it seems like they can't make a single running play without him holding his man. McKivitz had a rough day against Minnesota and only slightly better against Cincinnati. We know Banks isn't going to go on Sunday, so I would imagine Feliciano's the left guard. Do you do you think that? I mean, the guy that I'm most eager to talk to this week is Forster, and I've loved, and he's a very expansive answer guy, but I'd love to just say to Chris, hey Chris, you guys can't run the ball, and there's no rushing room between the tackles. What's the deal? And just see what he says.
Can we talk for a second? It's not necessarily his fault. He's doing the best with what they give him. They don't give him much. They don't spend on their offensive line. And I feel like, I don't know if this is a trend in the league. Like, just ignore your offensive line, work around it, spend your money elsewhere. But it's a stupid trend. And if you look at the best teams in the league, Philly, Kansas City, they do not do that. They have really good offensive line. Kansas City is the type of team, they'll be like, should we pay Tyreek Hill? Or should we pay Joe Toomey and Creed Humphrey and you know, who was it, Jawan Taylor? Like they constantly will spend on offensive linemen before they spend on skill position players. I don't understand why other teams don't do that. Kyle, you're an offensive genius, right? You don't need to spend all this money on running backs and wide receivers and tight ends when you can get the next guy. That's another reason not to spend on Brandon Ayuk. Like, no, spend on an offensive lineman. Trade Ayuk for a guy on a rookie deal. Come on. What are you doing? I don't understand why more teams don't take the offensive line seriously, because the best teams in the league do. They really do.
And look at Philly's O-line. Look at Philly. Yeah. Look at what the Niners try to do when they go tush push. Look at and quarterback sneak. It takes them three attempts to get a yard. Philly can get like 3.5 yards on every quarterback sneak.
Yeah, why is it so effective for them? Because their offensive line is amazing. You can do stuff like that with an offensive line like that.
Last topic. John Lynch did an hour over the bye week with Kawakami, and he basically said, Purdy came up and he said, we really believe in this kid. I think he even said it multiple times. But then he said, he's got to protect the ball better, which is something I think we all know. Where are you right now with Purdy? Where do you think they are? You asked the question to Shanahan. He gave you the awkward silence and then kind of slapped it away. And they say things for effect sometimes. Sometimes they say things to send messages. Where are they with Brock? Where are you with Brock? How much of their struggles, how much of the 17 a game do you put on Brock?
He's the quarterback, and he's turning the ball over. Other players aren't turning the ball over. McCaffrey did, but he's a quarterback. He's turning the ball over. He gets a lot of it. I mean, am I writing him off? No, but we're really 13 games into his career. We're learning so much about him. Now, this is the first adversity he's really faced other than getting injured. How does he respond to it? Well, he hasn't ended the losing streak yet, so we're learning. Also, what is it like for him when he's down in the fourth quarter? Hadn't happened a lot to him because the team was so good. It was rolling. He's good when things are going well. He's good when he's leading. But when he's down 5, 10, 14 in the fourth quarter, what does he do? And the last few games, it's not just that he couldn't lead the comeback. He was turning the ball over. Like he was like giving it up. So does that mean that he's a choker? No. It just means that I have questions about him now that I didn't have a month ago. And if he loses another game, I don't see how you don't consider benching him, especially if they score 17 points and he commits multiple turnovers. Not saying that's going to happen, but it's within the realm of possibility. So I think a lot's at stake for Brock right now. And we're learning who he is. He's learning who he is.
Would you start him against Jacksonville, or if it was your call, would you start Darnold?
See, what I would have liked to do was start Darnold against Cincinnati and say, Brock isn't benched. He's just hurt. He has a concussion. We're going to go with Darnold. And then you can go into the bye week and sort of look at the tape and make a decision. But now you didn't do that. You didn't prepare Darnold to start. I mean, I guess at this point, I would start Purdy, I guess. But if he loses one more, I'd bench him.
What do you think Kyle
If he loses 35-34, I won't bench him. But if he loses 2017 and commits 2 turnovers, I'd bench him.
If the offense is not productive, you're benching.
Yes. 4 games in a row, I'm thinking like, man, you're in a slump. You need to go to the bench for a while, gather yourself, and let's see what we got in Sam Darnold. We can go back to you, but we gave you a month to figure this out, and you can't. So we'll see.
Lynch was really clear that he thinks they believe in Purdy, but he can't turn it over. Yeah. You kind of put Shanahan on the record with what are you going to do with Brock? So what's your guess on how long of a rope he has with Brock?
Well,
or Brock
his
has with
answer
him?
was you don't bench a guy for no reason. And then John
Right.
Lynch said, okay, we like him, but he has to stop turning the ball over. So the reason would be turnovers. And I guess I should have said that. He was just so upset by the question. I didn't want to like make it a whole back and forth argument because it's not the point of everyone's there trying to ask questions. And I'm not trying to ruin it for people, but it's like, I could give you 6 reasons, man. What are you talking about? Reasons? The turnovers are the reason in the 4. So if he stops the turnovers and just manages the game and stops trying to do too much, checks it down, he'll be fine. But right now, it seems like he's down a little bit in the fourth quarter. He's trying to elevate his game and is going terribly. That's the way I see it.
If we have another game where, I mean, I thought he played well for 3 quarters, but you can't have 3 turnovers in 10 possessions in an NFL game. You just can't. You're going to lose every time.
It's better to be the guy who's bad for 3 quarters and then wins in the fourth than a guy who's good for 3 quarters and falls apart in a close fourth quarter. I'll take the first guy. That's Joe Montana. That's Russell Wilson. The guy who's good for 3 quarters and gives it up in the fourth, that's Steve DeBerg. You don't want that guy. And I'm not saying he's Steve DeBerg. But
you think that the turnovers in the fourth indicate more of who he is than the first 3 quarters?
I'm not saying it indicates. It's just been 3 games. But the fact that he's done it back-to-back games makes me wonder, like, are you going to do it against Jacksonville too if it's close late? And I don't know the answer to that. I'm watching closely this.
No, I hear. Let's just read the supers and get out. Good stuff today. A 49er fan LA. According to Grant, Brock is the reason the offense is struggling. Also, where was Stroud and Brock poll after the Dallas game 3 weeks ago?
Eat your heart out. Eat your heart out,
What
buddy.
were the numbers on the poll, by the way?
Stroud by a lot. I was being a jerk. It was obvious. No one needs to. Sorry.
You were leading the witness is what you were.
I was.
Chris Tallarica says Baltimore and Philly are losses. 49ers cannot stop mobile quarterbacks. They need to run Mason more and start throwing to the outside. Kyle is getting way too predictable. I'll say Baltimore is a loss. I really believe that. I think the Niners are going to beat Philly. I really do. I think whatever the Niners A game is going to be this year, they're going to bring it to the link in Philly. I think Niners win that game against Philly. That one I feel good about. Yeah, okay. We'll see. We'll see.
I'm not really into predicting wins and losses of games down the line because I don't even know who's going to be healthy. But I like when you put yourself out there, Larry.
There'll be no Dallas Goedert, and I think Goddard is a major problem for the Niners. So that's kind of another reason I like the Niners there.
That's it. Okay. All right.
That's another one. We'll see.
Shreddy
I've
Murphy.
been wrong before.
No.
Shreddy Murphy says, Grant, can you please ask Kyle Shanahan if he's practicing the 2-minute drill? Also, Ronnie Bell got no screens when Debo was out. Forgot he was on the team, shaking my head. I'm a little surprised that Ronnie Bell has had no role when you see that he might have the best receiving skills of any of their wide receivers. When we're standing there on the sidelines of practice and he's working on the toe tap drill on the sideline, he's the best at it. He's better than everybody else at it.
I'm going to say something. I feel like Jawan Jennings is having a bad year as a receiver, as a blocker. He misses like 1 block a game. He's responsible for 1 tackle for loss a game. He's not really getting open. I'd like to see Ronnie Bell in the slot right now. I'd like to see it. I think he's got a little bit more juice. I think you could do a whole lot more with him than you can with Jawan Jennings. Stop being sentimental to players from yesteryear, Kyle. I'm talking about Jawan Jennings and Elijah Mitchell. They don't need to be in the rotation anymore. They're giving you nothing.
Right.
I want to see Jordan Mason and Ronnie Bell on the field.
Don't, make look at what watch the game and see what you're seeing. And I agree. I think Ronnie Bell needs time. And I think, I definitely think Mason needs time. 2 last ones here. John Muniz, you both are talking like this team is winless. It seems like a couple weeks ago, this team was the best thing since the game was invented. Kick them while they're down. Oh, come on. Hey, John, I
kick them while they're up.
My whole thing is, we were talking about many of these criticisms all summer. So I would say, listen a little closer.
I kick them while they're up and kick them while they're down. You can't say I only wait till they're down. Nah.
Yeah.
I kick.
Seriously. I mean, I've been talking about this run. I mean, I'm the one who asked Shanahan about the run defense problems coming out of camp. So, I mean, I saw it back then. Chris Tallarico said should have sat Brock with Cincinnati before the bye.
It was such an easy opportunity. You weren't benching him. He was hurt. he got a concussion 6 days. It was so easy, but it felt like, oh, we got to win this game against Cincinnati, and then you lost by 14. It's like, missed opportunity.
The Niners, when they fall behind in games or on the schedule, they start to chase, and you got that. They had a chase feel. 49er fan says Brock's had only 5 opportunities to come back late in the game. Went 3-5, not bad. Twice in Las Vegas, once in Cleveland. Ugly or not, but he's a choker. LOL. Okay, nobody's called him a choker.
I'm saying he's a choker. No one says he's a choker, but he choked the last couple of weeks, in my opinion. And now you got to wonder: is this a trend going forward? It's been 2 weeks. He didn't.
It's okay to notice. It's okay to notice that he's had turnovers, but he's not a choker, and nobody called him a choker.
Not yet.
Rodman Sanchez.
Kyle, on the other hand, Kyle is a choker. Until further notice. But Brock, you can't say that yet.
And that's Grant and only Grant. Rodman Sanchez says, hey, Grant, do you still think OC McDaniel was a genius 0-3 against the good teams? I believe teams know how to play this offense predicated on room game.
Yeah, man. I mean, they are kind of fraudulent. Like, they beat bad teams. They smack bad teams. My friend was texting me today, Aaron Pochner. Shout out Aaron Pochner. And he said that Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins really remind him of like Chip Kelly era Oregon. Fast, exciting, really smash bad teams. But anytime they face a legitimate opponent, they lose. And I thought there was kind of something to that. Like, their offensive philosophies are different, but the output is kind of the same.
I would say the same problem the Niners are having is the same problem the Dolphins are having, which is you got to have a good offensive line. The offensive line for the Dolphins is not bad, but they're all banged up. The Niners' offensive line's a little questionable. You need a better line. And nobody talks about the line. You only talk about the line when you got it rolling. You don't talk about the line when it's not doing good, and their line stinks.
And that's my problem with the Shanahan coaching tree in general. Like, that whole Shanahan coaching tree thinks you can get by or prefers offensive linemen who are not particularly athletic, guys you get in the 4th, 5th round, guys who were redshirted in college, 5-year players. Like, why? Because Mike Shanahan won Super Bowls with that in 1998. Come on, update your philosophy.
2 supers, Mike Medley, $2. Trey Lance looks better than Brock Purdy. And King J, where are you watching, Trey? I'd love to know. King J shows says 49ers just signed Henry Bird to the practice squad. LOL. Take a look at him. Kyle's going to get fired if he doesn't win the Super Bowl this year. LOL. I hope he does. I think I hate him more than you, Grant. Laughing my ass off.
I don't hate Kyle Shanahan. I like Kyle Shanahan. He's fun to criticize. Like, you know how Howard Cosell used to go at Muhammad Ali? He didn't hate Muhammad Ali. He liked being able
Muhammad
to.
Ali.
Yeah.
Henry Bird? Anything? I got nothing on Henry Bird.
Never heard of him. There's one more before we leave. Someone just snuck in at the end.
Look at this.
Yeah.
Kill him.
Jets.
What's that?
Jets.
Says,
I don't
who's winning
predict
tonight,
the Chargers
boys?
to win games. I don't believe in Brandon Staley. I don't.
I'll tell you what my bet tonight. I took Jets on the teaser to the under. So I think the Jets defense slows down the Chargers. I think the Jets offense is not that great. The Jets are getting 3.5. They're at home.
Legit,
I gave them 7.5, so I got 10.5. So I got Jets plus 10.5 to the under. There you go. That's what I tell you.
That defense is legit on the Jets.
Oh, they are. They got incredible deep. Yeah. Grant, awesome stuff, man. Say hi to Pops for me tomorrow. We'll see you Wednesday down in Santa Clara. And let me just thank our sponsors. Marin Autoglass, bottom of the screen. Thank you, Marin Autoglass, New York style Italian sausage, the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Pig it up, pickle. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to Grant. Enjoy Monday Night Football. Catch Grant tomorrow. I'm on the radio tomorrow on 95.7 at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Catch me then. Until then, peace. Yeah.